A wonderful good morning and a very warm welcome to our press conference on the occasion of the cutting and welding, the Schweissen and Schneiden, the main fair for cutting, joining and coating. And we are very happy to see you here. And we also would like to welcome those who are joining via the web stream. Get connected by digital. This is the slogan here. My name is Tobias Wobbe and I will now chair the press conference, and I am really looking forward to all the great discussion partners I'm welcoming this morning, but more on this later. So what will you see? We have an official part with 5 exciting talks, and of course you always have the opportunity to ask questions, and we'll try to then answer your questions, but we will do this as a group. So after the official part, you can ask questions on all the presentations, and for those joining in the web stream, they can also use the chat and ask questions, and we will hand these questions on to the speakers. After the official part of the press conference, we will change the place, and after a very short break, we will go to the exhibiting area. Here we have some highlights that we are going to present to you, and we also want to present a great initiative which will also be described during our press conference. And even if you are not here, if it's about the talks at the exhibitor stands, you can participate because we've got cameras and you will have the sound and the image. So much as a starting point, what can you expect from the trade show? I do not know whether you had the opportunity to go there already. Some people are nodding, others not. Well, if you go to the halls, you can see great stands, great content that is presented. And I can tell you that a few days ago, it still looked quite different here in the trade halls. And this is why I would like to show some pictures of the erecting phase. So this described what happened before the show. Great pictures, and I just looked at one guest here, the host actually, and I could see that he also was moved by the pictures that you could just see here. But we will now discuss this with our host at Messe Essen. We are very pleased to welcome the CEO of Messe Essen for this press conference. So a big hand for Oliver P. Kuhrt. Well, Mr. Kuhrt, I think I didn't make a mistake yet. You really seem to be very happy after 6 long years of a break. How happy are you that it's now starting? Well, to be honest, it's a great pleasure because it's not only 6 years that we haven't had any show, but 10 years that it happened in Essen, because in 2013 it was the last show here, and then we had our major modernization program here, so that the show was relocated to Düsseldorf for once, and now we are back here, and many of our partners and friends from the industry are here for the very first time and are getting to know the show here in Essen. I'm really pleased about it. I'm very happy that it's starting, and I'm also happy to see this press conference, and I would like to welcome also those in the live stream. Well, some people have probably already walked around, and I guess you as well. So what can the visitors expect from the show? Well, here behind me you can see a chart that shows the site, and we've got more than 800 companies from 40 different nations. And they are exhibiting their new products and services until Friday in the halls 1 to 5. You'll find the exhibitors on welding, and companies with a focus on cutting are found in the halls 6 to 8. And all the accompanying solutions, coating, technology, finishing, digitization are to be found in those areas which are fitting to the topics in order to provide our visitors a good overview of everything that is happening in the show. But who is behind the 800 companies exhibiting? Well, cutting and welding really shows you the whole range of companies, international top brands, Lincoln, Visa, Microsoft, IBM, Binzel, EWM, Messe Cutting, voestalpine. So the show has always had a high number of foreign exhibitors. We now have 66% of international participants, but we also have a number of SMEs and hidden champions which are providing trailblazing solutions for the industry. For example, Certilas with the Aquaforce underwater welding electrode, which is based on user experience, or MX3D, a company that can manufacture in 3D printing and can even manufacture an entire bridge. You will hear more about these two exhibitors during the press conference. And the cutting and welding show is also a stage for many young companies, freshly founded companies. They are presenting themselves to an international group of visitors. We've got a stand with young, innovative companies sponsored by the Federal Ministry for the Economy in Hall 3. And we'll also have many associations and institutions that use the show in order to meet members, TÜV, the Fraunhofer Society, and also the Industry Fusion Foundation and our long-standing cooperation partner DVS, the German Welding Society. And, well, if a show of this size, it's really the Champions League meeting here. It's a top-class show here. And this really shows the importance, and we really want to cover everything. And this means that we cover the entire value chain of the industry. There are no gaps. Everybody coming here can rely on seeing what is really important in the industry and finding the partners that they are looking for. Now, the show is one thing, but now, no matter which industry you are talking about, you also have to have a lot of side shows. And I heard that there is also a great program of different events here. Yes, it's tightly packed. It's, of course, also an enormous effort to have all these side shows, and I would like to thank everybody, not only those who are involved in the direct organization, but also our national and international exhibitors who are planning the show for months and years. They are also making sure that everything is well coordinated and their machines and equipment is here on site. It's fun, but it's also a major challenge, and we are also feeling this. And we are grateful for all the efforts undertaken by the different exhibitors. But the program of events is also very important. It's packed, and we offer real added value to our trade visitors, and I would like to focus on 4 points here that I would like to present to you. First of all, the topic of underwater engineering. I do not know whether you already had the chance to go there this morning. It's really exciting to see how people are diving in the diving container and doing their welding work. This is really excellent, and you can see all these challenging works in the diving container in Hall 7. And additionally, there is a conference that provides the possibility to deepen your knowledge of underwater engineering. I could see that there are a lot of people already in Hall 7 watching what is happening there, and you can also go there and get a first-hand impression. Then we've got 40 user-orientated practical presentations at the DVS Congress. You, as journalists and representatives of the media, have free entrance to the Congress, and the best national and international welding talents are also our guests here, and they are competing here. This is a final of the DVS youth competition, and we also have the international welding competition here. Young welders who are competing, who are battling for the first prize. It's great, and we also got a very positive praise for this. And we are of course also very proud of our digitization rally. With the smartphone, the participants can move around just like a modern treasure hunt, and you can learn about smart solutions, and I'm very happy that we will hear some more about this by Professor Schilp. Yes, we will hear more about it, and we also have great partners that you can also ask after the official part. Now let's look around. Well, if I look around here, I can see that the press is looking for the latest trends. What are the latest trends that you see in the welding industry and presented in the show here? Well, it's quite exciting to see that we have a number of interesting trade shows here in Essen, industrial trade shows for different industries. But digitization is a common bracket that you find everywhere. It's a mega trend. The word has been used for years already, but digitization won't stop. It will continue, and this is something that you see here as well. Smart solutions offer so much potential in order to use resources and rare professionals in an even more optimal way. And then sustainability is also very important. We are offering a lot of innovation for sustainability, and many of you will probably also show this in your reports about the show. Many companies are presenting their innovations on sustainability, and it will be exciting to see what is already possible today. And at the same time, this is one of our most important tasks. We would like to show the world that this industry is really important for our future. Many people do not really know where you can find welding and cutting in bridges, football stadiums, bikes, cars, pots, shopping carts, irons, and also articles that you use every day. And the manufacturing depth and the processes behind this are not very well visible to many people, and so it's also good to show it to the public, and this is something that you can help with. You can contribute to making this public, because this industry really deserves this, because it's an important part of our general industry. So welding, cutting and coating is included here, and we are looking forward to welcome all the trade visitors. And just to give you a figure, we assume that in such a trade show, and also after such a trade show, we will have a sales volume of around 2 billion euros. And this really shows how important such an international trade show is. and the trends that you have been mentioning will also accompany us through the press conference. So much I can already say now, and it's also good to see you smile when you leave the stage here. Thank you very much, Oliver P. Kuhrt, CEO of MESSE Essen. Thank you very much for the insight you gave us.
Mr. Kuhrt had just mentioned the many years of cooperation with the DVS, the German Welding Society, and I heard that you gain a lot of knowledge through the German Welding Society with such a fair. And so we are happy to welcome Mr. Jens Jarzenbeck, the head of the Research and Technology Department at the German Welding Society. DVS is the abbreviation. Mr. Jarzenbeck, and here is he smiling. I always try to analyze how people feel, and if he feels well, then possibly industry does likewise. And there is a regular rota where we get data and facts. Is that a good time to ask whether you can give us some figures on the industry? Yes, of course. But I have to smile a little bit because I thought the journalists would all spend their time at Frankfurt Airport or would be in Dortmund waiting for the new federal football coach. But so we are really happy to have you all here. And the figures will come in a second. Being the German Welding Society, we have actually attended all the joining, cutting and surfacing fairs, and normally we have a value stage study that we conduct every year. But since we didn't have the show 2 years ago, the value creation study wasn't done this time, but next time again, the next fair will take place in 2 years from now. But what we do every year is we look at the industry and we take a look at the production value of the industry, which is what we did this year as well. And I don't really want to help you read the slide, but let me highlight some of the figures, especially looking around at this fair. You will see in the halls almost exclusively producers of joining technology. And you can see everything that you need to be able to join, cut or surface and be a user. So the 4.11 billion euros production value in 2022 are figures that are 1 year old, but they still show impressively how the industry is faring in spite of the pandemic. And so we have already come back to the figures before the pandemic. Also export, 2.8 billion euros in 2022. That is something we can be proud of. That's a plus of 15% we achieved. Of course, you all read the papers since you make the papers, and you know that the year 2022 is the year 2023. Now the question is, how shall we continue? Looking at the producing industries and trades in Germany, the figures are declining, I'm sorry to say. Looking at where welding technology is to be found, we see that especially with metal, we see an upward trend in the month of July as compared to June, and before we saw a plus of 2%. And for the producers of joining technology, this is a very good development. But in particular, it's also important how are those faring that use the welding technology. And now let's look at the value creating figures so that you get an idea not only about the production values that we see with the producers of welding technology, but also the users. What you see here is the study figures from 2019. You see we have a value of 2 billion euros that we achieved as value creation, but the application that has a value creation of 20 billion almost has to be broken down to the production value, and then the joining, cutting and surfacing technology in Germany is not to be neglected in the German economy. It's something like a hidden champion, especially the people working here in Germany. We have about 430,000 altogether, not people but full-time equivalents. So it's many more people working in welding technology, and this goes to show that we have a very good group of users in Germany, and how this will develop we'll see in a minute. You just said that there are many people working in the welding industry, but maybe some you would like to see in the welding industry, because this is an omnipresent topic. Of course, you will probably also have to face the lack of skilled workers. How do you fare with respect to this? Well, same with us as with everybody. And welding technology, well, I have to say joining, cutting and surfacing is competing with all the other industries. And here there is a competition for the best workers. And let me give you an idea. What you see here are the figures of the approved training institutions, and you see it's about 90,000 welders who took their exams. And once we have these figures here in Germany, we have 300,000 welders in Germany, so that's even too little. Especially it's going to be very difficult when we look around the academic education with engineers in welding. We've got the technical welding engineers. We have them here as 750, and this is a one-off exam that you have to take once a lifetime, and then you have to find a job as a technical and specialized welding engineer, and we have to resuscitate this. We have to furnish proof of having had this exam. And if you extrapolate the 750, if that is trained every year, we will reach a level of something like 2,000 or 1,500 per animal. We always try to round the figures in the welding industry. So it's about 750, and you add 2 zeros, then you will have those prospects for the future. But it means for the users and the producers, we need more skilled personnel, and it's more and more difficult to get them. Let us briefly also speak about scientific education. What is the benefit thereof if we really have a well-founded scientific training and education? Well, it's easy to answer this relatively. If you look around this room and ask who may have had a scientific training and what their function is today, then this is a success story that in welding technology you can achieve a lot if you have had a scientific training. Go through the halls and ask who is the managing director of a company here or there and who's responsible for innovative development. You will see that normally the training of these people was effected through a university that also covers welding project, and this is a good foundation for the career. And so also they are now having leading functions. Well, you're also the head of department of the research and technology department, and you also developed some support program for the small and medium-sized industries. But what do you observe in general? Apart from my function, I'm also the managing director for welding and other procedures. And we as a research industry do industrial joint research funded by the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs. And here we do not develop products, but we collect and develop knowledge to then end up in products. The companies come together and say, we've got a common problem, we have to find a solution, and the solutions are taken back home, and then they develop products that you can see on the fair. And you may ask the people on the stands, if you see novelties and innovation, is there some joint research project that was given birth to these developments? And this small and medium industry research is important. We look at the small and medium-sized companies and the figures are in red, and in particular now and in the year to come in 2024, funds are curtailed. Just imagine, given what we had available this year, we were able to fund 500 projects roundabout, and once the funds are curtailed, it's going to be only 400. Just to give you a feel of the overall number of projects and that were funded in the past and what we solicited by way of projects, that's really impressive if you look at what we were able to solicit. Talking about figures, we've got about 1 minute left to answer the last question. So briefly, safe welding as a buzzword, that is very important. When is welding safe, and what is your route to make sure that this challenge will be faced and weathered? Yes, I'll be very brief. The industry is facing a problem, a massive one at that. And the problem is, simply speaking, a regulatory stipulation that we have to meet in Germany and possibly in Europe. These are limit values in welding fumes, for example, and to have a limit value, and that is the danger, that would be generally considered carcinogenic. And these are requirements that never occur in Germany because of the occupational safety in Germany. And in Germany, for the very first time in the history, we were able to get all the relevant associations together, and there was the Employers' Liability Insurance Association together with other associations that you will all know, industrial gases, and you name it, all the associations came together and said, we've got a problem and we must find a solution. Because what you can see at the fair, the suction solution, the fans, or the third-party venting, these are all measures that we have, but they no longer suffice as individual measures, so we have to implement additional measures. And what is being done, for example, with the inert gas welding, the idea is that welding fumes be reduced at the point of production, at the point of welding already. So we will have different solutions with gases, with auxiliary material that will reduce the creation of welding fumes. And then on top of that, you take different steps so that we have better results. Because if we don't go for that, we will have a problem. Just to give you an idea, if you look at the cruising ship, for example, if we don't have the right helmets, we will not be able to produce these ships, for example. And many of the solutions needed will be seen on the fairground. Yes, and we will be able to look at some of them later on. And you already mentioned the foyer. And after our official part of the press conference, we will go outside and see some projects. Thank you very much for being so brief and for all your explanations.
It's of course always a challenge to provide all this important information in such a short time, but this worked very well. So after the two introductory talks, we'll now come to the first trends that you will also see during the trade show. And we now first come to 3D printing. Have you ever seen anything from a 3D printer? Have you also touched it? Do you know how it works? There are so many things being produced in a 3D printer nowadays in additive manufacturing. We had a 3D printer producing sweets at home, but I've got 3 children, so they ate it all up. But now you can build so much more. You can have houses in 3D, in the additive manufacturing. And I have found something here, a sports shoe. This is a sports shoe, and the sole was produced in additive manufacturing in a 3D printer. You now might ask yourself, what does this have to do with the show here? So the following idea, perhaps you can now even have a bridge. And Mr. Kuhrt already mentioned bridges in his contribution, so it should be possible to also have a bridge. Now I would like to ask you, who would trust such a bridge? Let's say it's 100 meters high, so would you like to cross such a bridge from a 3D printer? Who would not dare to do this? but perhaps people don't want to show up now. No. Well, apparently you are all very confident and you have trust in this technology, and let's now ask the next guest whether this is possible.
The animation is fiction or reality, and please welcome the CPO at MX3D, Thomas van Glabeke. Hi Thomas, good to have you here. Just in brief, who is MX3D?
Thanks for having me. MX3D is a company in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and we focus on large-scale 3D metal printing with welding robots. We were founded in 2014, and at the time we were looking for a technology to manufacture large-scale metal parts. But in 2014, standard manufacturing technologies didn't really allow to do so. And 3D printing at the time, you know, it could print parts up to a shoe, maybe. But to do that in metal, it was really expensive. So MX3D then decided to get an old welding robot, an old welding machine, and we played around with a little software that we made. We put welds on top of each other, trying to create 3D objects. So just by putting welds in 3D space, we saw potential. And then the idea of printing a bridge, which was completely unimaginable. At that time, large 3D prints didn't really exist yet. We launched the idea of printing a bridge with our technology.
Yeah, but definitely you have to tell us a little bit more about that idea of the bridge. Has it already actually become reality?
Well, in 2014, we played a bit around with the software. We looked at what software there was for welding, and of course it allowed us to do great things with standard welding, but for additive manufacturing, it didn't actually work. So we had to start ourselves. We built the software that we saw necessary to build this bridge in-house, and then we started building bigger and bigger parts. But of course, this was a moonshot idea. The initial parts we made, they were very far away from that bridge. So we had a huge technology gap, which we kept developing while printing bigger and bigger parts. And when we shared the idea of the bridge with the world, many people were enthusiastic, but a couple of welding experts also told us, don't do it. It's not going to be possible. You know, fully structured welding, it's very complicated to calculate, let alone being structurally viable. But of course, those couple of criticisms we could take, and we had many more people supporting us. I think around 30 partners partnered up with us. Of course, we focused on the software to build the bridge, but then we got help on the robotic side, the welding side. We got structural engineers trying to calculate our crazy but beautiful design. We got, you know, testing companies really and slowly we started printing bigger and bigger, and you know, we tried to get the confidence of making that moonshot project work.
Yeah. By the way, you're doing a great job. So now we've already reached the climax. So once again, this bridge, is it actually reality or is it still fiction?
Yeah, well, of course, here you see a small part. The robot is still working on it, but a couple of years after launching the idea in the world, the dream, the moonshot project, it became a reality. You're looking at a 12-meter long bridge, 6,000 kilograms, only weld beads, aside from the bridge deck, which is just a standard bridge deck. But it's a fully printed 3D bridge, 6,000 kilos. It was printed with 4 of our robots in 6 months, and all with the technology we developed in-house. And here you see it in the city center of Amsterdam. And we had, a great opportunity to place it there. And it was officially opened by Queen Maxima of the Netherlands. So, yeah, it was definitely structurally sound before we let important people walk over it.
So I wasn't sure if it could be Photoshop, but it was actually the Queen.
Yeah. This is actually the Queen, and it's near to one of the bars she also liked. So yeah, the bridge was a great success, and definitely got noticed.
Okay, sounds good. So to sum it up, you're a bridge building company now.
Well, that is a question we used to get a lot. Quite the contrary, we built this bridge, but we maneuvered into a completely different direction. The bridge design, it was beautiful, it was crazy, it really pushed us to develop very advanced software. But the bridge itself, it's not an economically interesting business case. There are many better different cases in the construction industry, but also in many different industries. And while we were working on the bridge, we already got interest from other parties, you know, automotive, maritime, to use this technology for different use cases. And actually, when we placed the bridge, our technology was already in use for completely different parts all around the world. But yeah, the bridge definitely helped us to push the technology, but now we're using it for completely different use cases.
So I'm wondering if any company can do it, or is it just you? So
I would like to say that the process has become fairly simple because the complexity we really tackle with our additive manufacturing software. And it basically comes down to, again, just welding with the welding robots. We can use the knowledge from welding that has existed for more than 100 years. We can use the existing guidelines, the certifications, but of course, we are printing in 3D. We are doing more than a couple of welds. So there is an extra step on top for the guidelines and certifications, but it is very familiar. I think when people look at it, they see the welding, they recognize it. You know, it can be treated like standard objects. You can CNC manufacture it. You can coat it. It's just a metal object. And any company can get started with it. And a lot of companies actually reached out to us because we're using welding, it has become one of the fastest 3D metal printing processes. We can do a couple of kilograms per hour to 15 kilograms per hour. So we can manufacture big parts really fast. And yeah, right now it's in use in many different industries. A lot of our clients come from a welding background. They had welding robots, and we supply them the software, and we turn these existing welding robots into 3D printers. But we also have clients who never worked with welding before, and then we can supply a turnkey solution system which allows them to build all of these crazy parts. So right now we are in the automotive sector. Here in Germany, there are multiple systems of us being used for it. We're still in the construction industry, not big bridges, but still very large parts. Aerospace, we're doing standard welding, so think about standard steels, but also aluminum and titanium as possible. So that's definitely interesting to send lighter materials up to space. Maritime, you know, again, aluminum, standard welding can be taken over by 3D printing, because in the maritime sector we see manual welding is becoming harder to find, like there's less people skilled that are available to work, so the robot can take over. Of course, industrial manufacturing, and lastly, energy. There, we are still printing massive parts. Think about the bridge, 6,000 kilograms around. I mean, we start a couple of kilograms, but there are parts that we are manufacturing which are not hundreds of kilograms, but thousands of kilograms. So yeah, it's very exciting, and I would like to say that anybody can get started with it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward. Later on, we will have another additional interview, and I know that we will have something you're showcasing that I can actually maybe test, like try how heavy it actually is. Small parts, but we'll see later on. So to bring it to an end, our wonderful interview, what else are you showcasing at Schweissen and Schneiden?
Yeah, so we are very happy to be here. It's our first time, and for the first time being here, we brought a very special object, which is this impeller that you can see at our stand. It's a nice showcase of how rapid 3D printing, rapid metal printing can be used for existing business cases. In this case, these impellers are casted, usually on the other side of the planet. It takes multiple months to manufacture one. And we 3D printed this impeller, 350 kilograms, in 2 weeks, which is a drastic reduction in the lead time. Think about this welding robot printed in Amsterdam, but if you need it in Korea, Australia, the States, a welding robot over there can also print it, so you don't have to ship it around anymore. And again, it's standard welding, it's very familiar. This one is fully CNC milled, so come check it out. Material testing has been carried out. It far exceeds the casting quality. So yeah, it's a great conversation starter. Come to our booth, check out our technology, check out our software, and if you have any ideas about current casted parts, milled parts, or manual welding, we can give you some feedback on how that would look like with robotic 3D metal printing.
Well, thank you so much for the wonderful insights, Thomas van Glabeke.
Thank you.
And of course, fingers are crossed for hopefully successful Schweissen and Schneiden. Thank you, Thomas. See you later. Ja, interessante Frage.
Interesting question. Could one maybe also build such a bridge using recycled material? Circular economy is indeed a buzzword nowadays. And actually, it's also a topic that we will face on with our next guest, who is head of sustainability management at CRONIMET. His name is Konstantin Müller, and we are so happy to have him with us. Thank you for taking the time, and be welcome. Hello together. I'm glad to be with you. Mr. Müller, briefly to get started, CRONIMET, we just got to know another company, but who is CRONIMET? CRONIMET is a company recycling metal, covering a wide spectrum of metals so that these materials can be reintroduced into the raw material cycle. And we are focusing on stainless steel recycling. And if I remember correctly, this bridge we just saw was made of stainless steel. In fact, you can actually build such a bridge using 100% recycled material. Briefly speaking, we were founded in Karlsruhe in 1980. Now we have 69 sites worldwide, and we have more than 1,600 colleagues working for us. And we have 1.5 million tons that we recycled last year, and generated $4.3 billion worth of sales. So much on us. I just mentioned circular economy. Of course, there are many industries talking about circular economy. Maybe we can make a comparison. What about the metal industry as compared to other industries? Well, it's not all that easy to make a one-to-one comparison because metal recycling is a heterogeneous industry, and we have to compare regions and types of metal. But metal, generally speaking, has a high recycling rate. And that is also due to the natural properties of metal, because you can recycle it infinitely without losing quality. And if I think of aluminum, copper, stainless steel, you name it, it's a wonderful property per se. Over and above that, we also have seen a lot of technological development taking place over the past decades that makes it possible to be more efficient when recycling metal. And as we also find out, many companies are now starting to take a look at their metal products from the sustainability point of view. So they want to find circular solutions that are part of the circular economy, and they want to actively start with recycling, which again pushes the recycling topic. But to be fair, I must say there are also some challenges. To some degree, we have very complex metal products that are very difficult to recycle. So if you try to separate the different types of metal, for example, in electronic scrap, then you have different qualities, and it's rather difficult to recycle secondary raw materials. Then it's difficult to reach the requirements of steel works, for example. So sometimes you have to resort to primary material, but to a very low percentage. And metal recycling requires a good infrastructure to collect, to process, and to recycle and reuse. And that's not always a given that this infrastructure exists. But if you take all this and if you look at the plastics industry, we are quite ahead, for example. I was also ahead one step because you already started to speak about sustainability. And having said that, the CO2 footprint is always important, carbon footprint. Looking at metal recycling, what is the advantage taking a look at the carbon footprint? The advantage is tremendous. There is a Fraunhofer Institute study that was conducted, and they tried to find out what can we save and what do we have to pay on top? 1 ton of recycled stainless steel saves 4.2 tons or 3 tons of CO2, and with scrap is 1.7 or 1.67 euros. So if we look at our recycling solutions and multiply this by the factor, then we will end up with very high savings. Interesting figures, and people are taking notes. Having heard that, we know that from biological organic products in supermarkets, there are some quality seals and marks. Is there something like that in your industry as well? Well, it's just being developed, but it makes sense to differentiate between B2B and B2C. In B2B, we already have some initiative programs, and the leading one is the Responsible Steel program that has a program where they want to have high standards in ecological aspects and environmental aspects that they want to meet, also the social criteria. But nevertheless, we see that many producers integrate some kind of green product lines, but you have to go into the detail, and that is where indeed the devil is, i.e. in the detail, because the buzzword green, you've got to be careful to not fall prey to some kind of swindle. In the B2C aspect, eco-steel, if you want to call it, it's still in the egg. We see that the perception in the final consumer or user or customer isn't really so high. As if you buy a stainless steel sink for your kitchen, people don't really ask whether or not this was sustainably produced. We still work on that with the different vocational groups and associations to sharpen people's awareness. But once we can introduce uniform criteria so that we can mirror it to the final customer, that would be advantageous. But we are not the only industry. If we think about green bonds for investments, you also have to take a close look at what you want to invest in. Well, you say it's still just being developed, but let us finish by looking at the future. What are the present developments that you can see, and where do you want to go in the future? Metal recycling can also be addressed from a totally different angle. What we are doing is we close the metal cycle, we reintroduce the raw materials into the substance cycle, and we make a contribution towards securing raw materials. And given the present political situation where supply chains aren't all that reliable anymore, and where we see our ores and steel products need to be imported from other countries, and it's not so reliable, the supply, and you've got to be careful. And by way of recycling, we take out the risk and we offer a considerable contribution towards securing the availability of raw materials in our country and to maintain our competitiveness, of course. We keep our fingers crossed, and one topic that you could speak about at length after this press conference and also in the framework of this fair on joining, cutting and surfacing. Thank you very much for being with us, Mr. Müller. It was fun.
Well, exciting targets that we heard about, and now we are almost at the end of our official part, and this is the last talk during the official part of the press conference. You might have heard already that MESSE Essen, together with DSF and IFF, has focused on digitization, and this is clear because in the digital age, of course, also the manufacturing industry wants to remain competitive, and how this can best be done will now described by the next guest. He is the professor for production informatics at the University of Augsburg, Professor Schilp. Well, thank you for inviting me. Well, we already heard outside for our guests in the live stream and here the question, when I talk about IFF, what does it mean? What does it stand for? Well, to now talk about acronyms is too difficult, so let's now try to spell it out. It's the Industry Fusion Foundation. Who is that? Well, we have a lot of strong IT partners who are crucial in this, but we have many initiatives in different IT areas, IoT and what have you. But what is special for us is that without the domain knowledge, and in my department sometimes it's ignored, but without the domain knowledge you can't really make progress. And this is why we are so happy to have more than 60 industry partners and research and development partners, all coming from metal processing. And this is so important, from small and medium-sized enterprises to major companies. We have built this cooperation and we are now providing a solution. And of course supported by research and development and our university, so that we now take a look at new artificial intelligence and AI solutions. What is our target? Well, you might know this from other software development projects. We want to provide an open source solution for all different providers, and we call it Industry Fusion X, and we want to now turn it into great products. The open source solution is now available in the 5.0 solution, and now we are planning the commercialization of these products. And then if you want to buy such a product, you also want to see the benefits. What does it help you? And on a standardized platform across many different manufacturers, we can take into account the factory owners, the plant builders and the providers of digital services, because the manufacturing company can optimize the products, the manufacturer of plants can digitize his solutions, and we can think about new business models. Mr. Kuhrt already mentioned digitization and said that it's an old term. Industry 4.0 is even older. It was in 2012 or 2014 where people started to talk about it. But now we'll see the first solutions implemented by Industry 4.0. Well, let's talk about it. Well, first of all, you said it's a unique initiative. You have many great partners involved, covering the entire range, small and medium-sized enterprises that, of course, have some difficulties in digital transformation because they don't have the funds to find solutions to make their own manufacturing processes smart. You already mentioned added value, but as we now are in a more theoretical environment, perhaps you can also provide some best practices. Can you give us some examples of how this looks like in practice? Let me now move around the charts a little bit. Now you can see what I wanted to show to you. Well, how can we now turn theory into practice? The beautiful thing about it is that next to the foundation, we also set up a business network, and this includes SME partners, and this is headquartered in Bad Wörishofen in Bavaria, and the Industry Business Network 4.0 already developed some use cases. And two of these use cases I would like to focus on right now. Two examples where we say, what can we actually also show on our booth at this show? Here, for example, the smart filter cartridge. We talked about smart products, and normally you talk about smart gadgets that everybody wants to see. And in the components area, we have a filter cartridge. To make it smart would be a wonderful idea. Why? Because this gives you special benefits. We can, for example, well, you already talked about the circular economy, and now we can also trace the filter cartridge across its lifetime. This can, of course, also be done with a small solution, proprietary solution, but this doesn't help the customer a lot because then you are bound with one manufacturer. But no matter which industry I move in, people say they do not want to rely on one manufacturer only, but everybody wants to have a heterogeneous landscape. And this is why we wanted to do this across the different manufacturers so that everybody could get involved, to have an open system in order to provide an added value to the user, from product development down to the waste disposal of the product, or smart products in general. You could now ask, what is smart in a cut metal sheet? Well, this doesn't have anything to do with the cutting process itself, the smart solution that we produce, but we want to roll it out. And this is also a topic, a metal sheet. What's the material? If the metal sheet already has a digital twin, then I can simplify many of the processes. You already talked about a shortage of skilled workers. You can then also automate processes, and this is something that you can now talk openly about. In the past, this was something that was attacked very often, but now people go for automation because we know that we have to produce products with fewer people, and this is exactly what we want to do. Well, this digital twin is definitely also a very interesting topic, and we can see it in many different areas. And then you have less cutting waste because you can already find out how best to cut. And we also can develop new business models. Today, many plants and equipment are bought, but now in the future, perhaps you can no longer buy them. So we then use digital business models to hire the equipment, but hiring is perhaps wrong. This would be based on completely different business models based on the data that we generate, and equipment as a service is also something that you can see on our booth. And you can also get some more information about the cooperation between DVS and MESSE Essen, perhaps some information on how you started this cooperation and why. I thought it was great that MESSE Essen said digitization, it's not the 25th topic. I'm a mechanical engineer. I studied at Munich University. I went to a SCHWEISSEN Schneiden show in 2006, I think it was. What is interesting is that digitization is one of the leading topics here. And at DVS, well, we also had some discussions. Also, our chairman of our foundation council, they had discussions with DVS. And we said that we also have a lot of sponsoring projects, funded projects, and then we started a discussion, and we then finally entered into this cooperation. We thought, how can we make sure that digitization is not just the fifth word, the fifth term on a poster, but how can you really show it? How can you make it tangible? And here we say each visitor to this show can really see this. And you can really see it on the on your smartphone. You can go for your treasure hunt. You can see the different stations. You also have some questions. It's like an exam. And if you answer 3 questions successfully, you will be in the winners group. And at our booth, you can also win something, a prize that is worth 10,000 euros. Okay, this is something that will probably invite many people to take part in the digitization treasure hunt, the digitization rally. And we'll also show you the QR code so that you can get access to this rally. And now let's briefly look into the future. What are you planning for the future? Well, the development is very fast. We have an initiative that was driven by individuals and some companies in the beginning. And the Industry Business Network and the Industry Fusion Foundation now have to open up. And we really want to create a real digital twin, but we are not talking about it, but we are implementing this. This is standardized. You can use your own machinery and put it into the ecosystem, and each and every machine is identifiable, and we want to create trust and confidence. Such a solution is only possible if everybody trusts each other. So we developed an open source solution. Let me also describe what this means. Everybody can write code, can develop, can also participate, but you also have to publish your results. But this is normal in a software development environment. But as soon as it gets into a product and we need services, we want to install it easily. I already mentioned this. The companies should focus on keeping their know-how in cutting and welding and not only developing IT competencies. So this means that it needs to be easily implementable, and now we will see the first products arriving, and we want to then develop the market from there. And who is supporting you will be described later on in the exhibitors' interviews. Mr. Schilp, first of all, a big thank you to you for your part so far. And for the final contribution in the official part of the press conference, we already got a lot of great insight. Mr. Kuhrt did not promise too much, so you will see a lot of content. And now we'll have the Q&A round, as it's also great to see everybody here on stage. I would like to ask everybody to come and join me here, and then I can see that we have not yet received any public questions in the chat. This is okay. You can, of course, also approach the individual speakers personally or individually after the press conference. And now, yes, everybody is taking photographs of all the speakers together here on stage. And we will now give you the opportunity to ask questions. So just raise your hands, and then we come to you with a microphone and answer your questions.
So sehen zu 100%.
So everybody is very happy. That's what happy faces look like. So maybe we can proceed with the personal exchange now. We have a very short break right now, and we will be back once we have reached the exhibition area, and we will take the stream along. Remember the digital press folder, and I've heard that there are wonderful codes. All of what you need to do is just scan in the code so that you can get the press releases. Also, the information on the information and digitization rally is available. Briefly on the fair, I don't know whether you've used LinkedIn and you've seen this construction video already. So on the left-hand side, you may even, when scanning such a code, see such videos before they are officially released. So let us give you easy access to this QR code. Give us a minute, and then we will be outside this room and we'll take you along to the next exhibitor talks. Thank you for now, and enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you.
Ja, wie gerade eben.
As we just announced, we are back already. That was super fast. Thank you for keeping abreast of everything also online. We start with the first exhibitor interview. We are at the stand of 3M, and I would like to welcome Christian Ripken. Let us hear about the highlights of 3M. You brought something along. What is part of the highlights? Thank you very much. Welcome to 3M. We normally bring along two departments because we have two areas that deal a lot with metal works. Before Theo Simon gives us more information on grinding technology, I would like to talk a little bit about the welding helmets. These are the Generation 5 Series 3 welding helmets. Generation 5 concentrates on the welder. It's no longer a one-fits-all solution that would work for any kind of welding. Every person is different, so it's important to have systems that can be individualized. 501 was developed for heavy-duty welding, and 502 was for TIG welding, and then 503, it's the headset for standard welding, and this is a pure welding helmet without the use of a fan system, and here we have one with a fan system or ventilation, so that we have this on top of the protection of eyes and face. And here it's important to have a lightweight and a small narrow area so that the welder can see a lot. So this headset can be easily fixed to a 3M industrial helmet, and we can fix lamps, working lamps, so that you have a better illuminated work area. And so this is really geared to the normal needs of a standard welder. Before Theo continues with the grinding equipment, I would like to invite you to B29 in Hall 1. And we can show you this. And this is it in all brevity, but the second part is also important. Theo Simon is with us, and he would like to give us some information.
We have two highlights. The second one is the new Cubitron 3. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, sure. Today, 3M is launching the Cubitron 3 brand. And this is a group of products that help improve the way welders work. So in industry, in welding, there is a lot of preparation before welding, and there is a lot of refinement after welding. And these products that are used in that industry get very little focus. And today we're launching Cubitron 3, which is an upgraded mineral technology which makes these products work faster and last longer. Effectively, in industry, there's many challenges with inflation causing reduced productivity. There's a skills gap or a labor shortage. And essentially what 3M are trying to do is improve their products so they work faster and last longer. So we've got the technology here. This technology is what we call crushed grain technology. It's been around for over 100 years. And this is what many products will be using. And then 40 years ago, it was improved to a ceramic grain, but same technology. Now, with the invention of this new technology, we have a shaped grain, which is triangular. And if I can just show you here, this is the traditional grain, and it creates a lot of heat and damage to the material when it works. When you shape the grain into this cutting surface, it cuts more efficiently, generates less heat, and essentially the welder is not grinding for as long, so he's more productive. It also minimizes hazards. So that is the shape technology, and then the latest innovation that we're sharing this week is an optimized triangular shape, which is even sharper and lasts longer. So that's this one here. So I would really welcome you to come to our stand in Hall 1, 1B. And many of these products will be on a live demonstration. So I can talk as much as I like about how great these products are, but seeing is believing. So please come to our stand. And I thank you very much.
Well said. Seeing is believing. Thank you so much, Theo. Thank you, Christian, for the moment. Off to the next, little booth that we have right here. Thank you. Und ja, gerade eben haben wir im Live.
Well, we already met Thomas van Glabeke from the company, but now I can welcome Paul, and he is also here on site, and he will present some components here. I already saw it when Thomas took this shape, and we didn't really talk about what this is. Paul, this looks a little bit like a great pencil box. Well, you can use it for as a pencil box, but actually it's part of a major arts project. We love big shapes, and this is only a small part of this, but we just wanted to show the consistent quality, the consistent setup, and in order to do this you have to understand the process and program and code the robots in the right way. And the other point I would like to mention is that normally you print upwards layer by layer, but here you can see that it's also possible to go for more complex geometries and overhangs. So this is something that otherwise is very difficult to produce in 3D printing. But you are not only showing arts objects, but also industrial components. And I like this one. This is really quite interesting because honestly, Paul, I would not have imagined it to be so smooth. Or is it finished already? Well, you know, components that are absolutely smooth, fully milled, smooth surfaces, but very often it's not really necessary. This is a 3D printed component, and you can see the welding seams, the welding technology that is included in this component, and the further processing, the milling, only needs to be in the areas where you've got functional surfaces and where you are in touch with other components. And this saves time, this saves costs. And still the geometries can be produced in exactly the way that you need them. And you only have to remove the upper 2 or 3 millimeters. Well, just come here and also touch it. It's very nice to feel. For you in the stream, it's more difficult, but perhaps you join us in the show and then you can go to the stand and touch the component. Well, hard to believe that you really built this bridge, but this now is the miniature version. Is this the most special part? Well, we are trying to come up with more and more crazy ideas, but this is definitely one part which got a lot of attention and which is exciting to see. A huge 3D printed component. 12 meters is the length of the bridge, and this makes it our largest part manufactured so far. But it's not the end. There might be other more larger components. You can see it in the center of Amsterdam, so go to Amsterdam, you can walk over it, you can touch it, you can feel it, and take a look at the technology. Well, now you know where to go. You first stay in Essen and then you move to Amsterdam to see the bridge. Thank you very much, Paul, for this great overview. So it's really exceptional what is shown here. And now we move to the Employers' Liability Association for Wood and Metal. Welcome to you.
We have briefly heard a little bit about the Safe Welding Initiative, and there is a new information about the reduction program for welding fumes. Could you give us an idea of the problem that this is all about? Well, this reduction program for welding fumes, soberly speaking about it, is a summary of matters that were already known beforehand. In the past, we always knew, but now we know more exactly, that welding fumes should not end up in people's lungs. Toxicologists have new experience, and thus limit values are reduced, and it is much more difficult now for the welders to make sure that they go home safely in the evening and also tomorrow. And this reduction program for welding fumes is a systematic approach towards meeting the limit values. Had we spoken to each other 10 years ago, we said, yes, okay, of course we have to extract welding fumes, and we've got a lot of producers making equipment available, but we've learned that this may not suffice anymore with the new limit values. And you can see this wonderful tree on the left-hand side. And so we went for the big approach and said, welding fumes do occur. What can we do about it? They enter the lung of the welder. What can we do? And all the boxes around this are parameters and little screws that you can turn. And this led to the initiative where we said, okay, we being the Employers' Liability Insurance Association wouldn't want to do that alone. We need lots of partners, well, exaggeratedly saying, one partner for every little screw and cog. And we got them all to sit down at one table, which is a novelty. And everybody has their input and makes sure that we know what makes sense where and what can we implement and where do we have to do and go. And the research community comes into play. And there are some areas where we have to gain more insight. And to come up with a major packet is what we did, and it's stated on this board, the different steps. You have to make sure, where am I? What have I achieved? How good is what I've done so far? What else should I maybe do on top? And then, of course, implement the steps and check whether it's all done. And it's all about the minimization program for welding fumes. It is hot off the press, this publication, and it's also available on the internet. And in the future, we will join forces to also implement all these steps. And we are so grateful for your practical feedback so that we can say welding is safe and we can weld safely. Yes. And you already communicate solutions in this publication? Yes. First solutions are available. We do not yet have comprehensive solutions. We have different welding processes, and different welding processes offer different options for further development. We also looked back at old ways of reducing welding fuse. That was more an ancillary benefit, but with different welds and different approaches that reduce the welding fumes accidentally. But now we take a conscious look at the welding fumes. And if you keep your focus on this and don't lose sight of the weld quality, then you have tremendous options to take steps at the source that will be effective for everybody and that make the subsequent steps even easier to take. And this is the spokesperson for ventilation of working places and rooms, Mr. Holzmüller, and we will swap microphone and publication. We have one more place to visit.
Rather two people to share information with. First of all, Martin Jaganek. He is the managing director of Certilas. And here, as an introduction, who is Certilas? What do you do? The Certilas group consists of 3 sites, Netherlands, Germany and France, and we offer filler materials and additional materials for the welding processes in order to give the customers the best welding solution. And next to me we have Peter Gerritsen. I forgot to mention him. Yes, my name is Peter Gerritsen. And as you can hear, you are the expert from the Netherlands. Well, if you're saying so. Well, you should show your worth here. You've got a special highlight here, and dear audience, now you really have to take a close look at it. It looks like a sparkling candle, and now we will talk about the details here. So in the past, we had electrodes as dry electrodes, and then people tried to also use them underwater there was a standard coating, and then it was isolated enough and it could be used underwater. But we now used 8 years to develop a special electrode. We did a lot of tests. We improved it over and over again. And this is not only an electrode for dry welding, but this is an electrode which is specifically developed for welding underwater. So we improved it step by step, and now it's ready. It can be launched, and we can now show how we can weld in the container, in the diving container. Well, Mr. Cheganek, the colleague has made some explanations already, but would you like to add anything? Would you like to speak about the added value? And we already said that you can see it live used here in the show. So 8 years of development, 8 years of development in this one product, which is a long time. But what is the benefit now? Well, why? Well, it's easy to explain. Underwater work is always very challenging, and welding underwater is really the absolute challenge. But in the past, the electrodes could not be properly used, and we wanted to develop an electrode together with the customers which is easy to use underwater and which has special properties, for example, ignition and the slack that is disappearing. And diving and welding underwater is also quite dangerous. So to reduce the working time is always a benefit. So we now give the welder the possibility to work faster and safer. Well, great. Thank you very much. And you should definitely take a look at this in practice. This is really a great topic. Welding underwater. Well, it's not definitely the easiest place to work. You have difficulty seeing, but we already heard very often it's about togetherness. You have to bring various areas together in order to make things possible and professional. Thank you very much, Mr. Jaganek and Mr. Gerritsen. And now we have one more station left, and I will move on, and we will again talk about IFF.
I had promised Jens Jerzenbeck that we can accommodate one more subject area. I can't see him, so let us turn to the partner interviews right away. And let me tell you that we were able to summon a lot of partners. So let's go for some kind of elevator pitch so that all the partners get a brief opportunity to introduce themselves. Christian Donitsky, Director of Excellence Manufacturing EMEA with Intel. Mr. Konitsky, welcome. The question of all questions, how do you support people when implementing industry fusion, and why? Well, the why, we are very active in Europe, and we can see that Industry 4.0 is the heart and soul. It's from Germany, it's from Europe, and that is where innovation is taking place. That's where the market participants, from the producers to the users and the system integrators, are to be found. And we, being the global technology enterprise, consider ourselves an enabler. We also sell products, but we want technology to really help and support everyone in our everyday life. And we want to look at sustainability and CO2 prevention, and that is really important. We want to be able to map that with the digital twin. And we also have an enormous ecosystem. You see the partners mentioned here. In one way or another, we are linked to everyone, and we use our technology, they use our technology, and we talk to them, and there is a very strong software producer. We are a strong software producer that not many people know about it, and we have this open source topic, and the industry is thus able to be competitive in the global market. Thank you very much. Thank you for being so brief. And now a lot of people know that Intel is also a producer of software. So you can tick that off. Thank you very much, Christian Donitsky. And I think you also established the contact to SUSE.
And now I would like to welcome the country manager Germany at SUSE, Holger Pfister. This networking solution, Professor Schilp already explained this Industry Fusion X. In how far are you playing a major role in implementation? Well, first of all, SUSE has been a pioneer for Linux for 30 years, so we are really believing in open source. And then, of course, you have to have somebody supporting this, whether it's a hyperscaler solution or local computer or on a mobile device, an iPhone. We can provide the solution where you can run the software. Our software runs in ISS in the production facilities of the German automotive industry, and we just want to make sure that we've got an open source platform which makes it easy to exchange data to the benefit of the industry. So we always wanted to go for the open source because we said you cannot really advance progress if you keep all your knowledge for yourself. Well, great, thank you. This is great, open, you like to share, and then you also see how the cogs are intermeshed. And now we'll talk about the third partner, IONOS, and as Senior Vice President, Cloud Services and Digital Ecosystems, we welcome Rainer Streeter.
Ganze Gesicht.
You're already beaming. You seem to enjoy this partnership. Absolutely. So just briefly, when we talk about the development of the open source networking solution, to what extent do you consider yourself the ideal partner? I think there are three main reasons. One being that digitization needs cloud infrastructure, and IONOS, as a German cloud provider and the largest one in Europe, provides this infrastructure according with the general data protection guidelines, and so that for our partners and the SMEs, we are a trusted platform where they don't really have to worry about what awful things may happen to their data. They have a safe computing center, and everything is developed in Berlin. And secondly, we talk about new technologies. Data spaces are key technologies that are needed for digitization to end up in business cases and success. And we also supply this technology to the consortium. And the third point you mentioned, it's such a fun to be part of this world-class consortium, and where we can really do all the work with the speed that we can offer and make everything end up in the market, and to enable the business cases that are all that we are all dreaming of. Of course, we want to keep everything enjoyable, and we will turn to the fourth of the five partners and would like to welcome Thomas Saalmüller von Steria and his partner banking, and here we have to look at finances.
And now an exciting question. How can you also tap into new financing possibilities? Well, thank you for the question. And why is the most important topic? I would like to come back to what Mr. Kuhrt said when he talked about the Champions League of the industry. And as a representative of the financial service provider, I don't really go to many trade shows, but this is really impressive. And in order to make progress possible, enormous investments will be required in coming years. Modernization of machine parks and digitization, and you need new and more flexible funding possibilities. Equipment as a service is a catchword here. The users of the machines should be in the focus of the funding, and this has not been possible so far. Why? Because we didn't know about the machine data, but now it is possible. We get the information real time, and we from Soprasteria, with our financial services expertise, will provide the platforms in order to map the required funding products, and we build the bridge between the industry and the financial service providers. We think it's great and we are so happy to be part of this initiative. Well, you really summarized it very well. So we really thought data and we can do it together. This is something that you feel looking at you. Thank you very much, Thomas Müller. And this means that we'll now move on to the last partner, Dell. And I would like to welcome Dr. Stefan Mutmann, Manufacturing Field Sales Director at Dell.
Und jetzt
And now it's really exciting because you support IFF with hardware. For example, with servers that you make available. And honestly, I don't know how you feel about it or what is it like at home. Nowadays, you use the cloud left, right, and center. Why? Well, I'm a bit uncertain. We trust the cloud technology and we think in the future nothing will be possible without the clouds. And now you make hardware available by way of servers. Isn't that a step backwards? Thank you very much for this clever question. But it is a development with the cloud, not against the cloud. And that actually matches what we've heard before. Digitization is getting started, but it is an outdated term. Digitization is quite often now directly integrated into production. Just think of an automotive factory where each welding spot is analyzed in real time with the quality, and that needs to be done with AI, but it has to be done really close to the machine. So you need computing power where the data are generated and processed within very short time. And you also have to meet certain safety requirements, and such intelligence influencing the production process needs to continually control everything. So that may influence the people working there. And there you don't really want to depend on a cloud. So certain things will happen centrally in a cloud, but others locally in production. And that is where we as Dell are supporting. Thank you, Dr. Luhmann. And you know something? We get everybody back to this poster, and it looks as if what was said is really what we can see. Everybody is happy to stand shoulder to shoulder with everybody else, and that's what it looks like. And for our live stream, we can say those who enjoy their work, those who join forces to meet an objective, they are welded together. And, well, I just had to use this phrase. Thank you very much. And so this marks the end of the live stream on the occasion of the press conference for the SCHWEISSEN and Schneiden Fair. Thank you for being with us, and remember, even at home, that there is no such thing as an unanswered question. Do come here and see and touch and feel and smell everything, and I would like to wish you all the best of success and joy and happiness and optimism with this fair. That was it from Essen. Enjoy the rest of the day, all of you, and the rest of the time at the fair, all within the framework of our digital press folder. Please enjoy your reading exercise as well. Thank you.